going on? It's Quinn David Furness. Welcome to my show. Quinn David Furness presents the Beantown podcast for Sunday, January 26th, 2020. What's going on? How are you? What's happening? This is my voice. This is my show. And we're coming to you live from the north side of Chicago, where we've been getting some funky weather, you know. The last 2 weekends, snowstorms here in Chicago. Last 2 Friday nights, actually, making going out a pain in the behind. And then they were saying yesterday, Friday night into yesterday, it was going to be snowing quite a bit as well. But you know what they say on the meteorologists and stuff is 1 to 6 inches. Which, and I was talking to a friend about this at dinner on Friday night. That's such a big variance, you know. It's like either barely a smattering of snow or, half a freaking foot. So what ended up happening, if you're not in the Chicago area, is it was so warm. And by so warm, I mean like mid-30s. But, so it's just kind of a very heavy, wet rain, my favorite kind of rain, in fact. But everything's just kind of, puddles. There's some snow on the ground because it's not quite warm enough for it all to just melt away, but there's no, snow accumulation going on really. And today it's a nice day. Definitely going to get out and do some walking, W-A-L-K-I-N apostrophe, in a little bit here because it's sunny out, which is not a super common occurrence in Chicago. It's going to kind of, looking at the sky right now, one of those days where it's like the sky is kind of white and gray, so there's some thin cloud cover going, but it's not thick enough for it really to stop the sun. So it's pretty bright out, and it's high 30s, that sort of thing. Sounds like a good day to me to throw on the boots and maybe go for a little stroll by the lake. So we'll get that going after we finish this up, take a shower, cook some brunch or so. Gonna make some French toast, which is exciting, and I usually try to avoid the mass carbs, but got a lot of bread in my freezer. Actually, the last 2 times my brother Walt has come to stay with me, once around Thanksgiving and then once at the beginning of this year. Got some bread both times, and whatever he doesn't use, I just throw in the freezer because I don't eat bread, or at least a loaf or loaves of bread in my day-to-day. Excuse me, but got it defrosting right now, and we're gonna be got some eggs from the grocery store this morning, and I'm pumped. It's gonna be good. And actually, on this topic of food, we're gonna be spending most of today talking about sort of my diet, eating habits, dry January, all that stuff. That's going to be the topic of discussion for today after we talk about a concert I went to last night. We'll try to keep this episode a little bit shorter. I don't have a ton going on. There's a lot more happening starting next week in February. So we got some things to look forward to, as well as some updates on the Scott Farrell book. So we'll touch on that stuff in the end. But just as a heads up, as a reminder, February is Pledge Drive month for us here at the Beantown Podcast, where our goal is going to be about $200. We smashed it last year. We're going to be looking to do something similar this year. So we'll get to that in 1 second here. We'll also be talking about some travels I got happening this week. Haven't been traveling much lately, but I'm going to the Deep South, and then I'm going to Texas. So it's going to be exciting. First things first, the listener discretion is advised when you're listening to the Beantown Podcast. Number 1, we'll occasionally use some harsh language. Number 2, this podcast is just objectively terrible. Thank you to myself for that fun intro music, Scott Joplin's The Entertainer. And again, we're going to try to be getting these podcasts filmed ASAP. Our friend, hashtag friend of the podcast, Matthew Fiedler, is apparently still swamped in work. We haven't heard from him in about a month at this point. We ought to give him a call at some point this week, maybe when I get to Alabama. But yeah, that's what's going on. So let's jump right in here. So Ben Gibbard, who you probably know, one way or another. And we played some of his music, on this podcast before, not for a while, but we're gonna play a little for you today, which is exciting. Ben Gibbard is the frontman for Death Cab for Cutie and was behind the Postal Service back in the early 2000s, and he is from the Pacific Northwest and really good solo, acoustic, that sort of thing. So he is doing a little small tour right now, but he was in Chicago last night, and tonight. So last night was the only real opportunity I had to go see him because yesterday morning, following up on a Friday night, I had to work and had to, be out of the house by 6:45 a.m. or so, and that's not really what you want to be doing if you're not getting back until midnight or so. And then tonight, again, so he's at Thalia Hall. Thalia. I always thought it was Thalia Hall, but the security guard outside, who was first guy, said, "Welcome to Thalia Hall." So I don't know. We'll put our researchers on that one, but so you're not going to get home until after midnight, or right around midnight, because he plays till about 10:45, which is great. But that's just not really what you want to do on a work night. So last night was really my only opportunity. I was exhausted because I was out late on Friday night and worked from like 7:30 until 2:30. I then went for a run, ran a 5K, and then ate and got home closer to 5, and slept for like 90 minutes, took a power nap, and then went back out. And it takes about an hour 20, hour 30 to get down to Pilsen, up here on the north side. It's just a long slog, but totally worth it. If you're like, oh yeah, I know Death Cab for Cutie a little bit. I remember the Postal Service, but you don't really know Ben Gibbard, or just his skill set, his abilities. Go listen to some of his solo stuff, because he's amazing. In particular, he did a KEXP concert maybe 2 years ago or something like that with Cheryl Waters, I think her name is. And he's there for over an hour. This is how impressive this guy is. He sits there, he plays like 2 songs from the new album that he was there promoting, and then he literally just sits there for an hour after that and plays songs, audience requests. He just pulls requests out of a hat, and whatever they say he plays, either guitar or piano. And this guy's been writing music for the past 20 to 25 years, and between Death Cab, Postal Service, and Ben Gibbard's solo stuff, he's rocking about 10 albums plus EPs at this point, plus just other singles. So it's a lot of material that he's got up in his head, and he was spectacular. So last night at Thalia Hall, who knows? Pretty much the same thing. Not audience requests. He had a set list that he was working off of, but just really, really fun to watch. The guy is just pure musical talent combined with fantastic songwriting ability, and just a pretty chill concert as well. There were a couple times when he starts playing the songs that everyone knows, so basically something from Transatlanticism or Plans, and you get the crowd singing, and they're really awful. So that kind of hurt the vibe slightly, but for the most part, he's a chill artist, and the audience was pretty chill across the board. So that was nice. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, and I know I've played some Ben Gibbard tunes on the podcast before, but we're going to play something he didn't get to last night, which I wish he would have. He did play a couple songs from Codes and Keys, which is like 2011 or something, and widely considered to be Death Cab's like just the worst thing that they've ever done. And I think as a whole, it is probably their worst album, but there are still some things I like about it, and some songs that are really good. For example, so the title track is Codes and Keys, and the album version, the studio version, is fine. I actually like it better than a lot of other people do, but it's still, it's nothing that special. But he played it, solo acoustic on the piano last night, and it was really cool. I'd never heard a version like that, because it's not something you usually hear him play or Death Cab play. They never play anything from this album when you see them live, and I've seen them live a couple of times, but he played a solo version on the piano last night that was really cool, and I liked it a lot, which is true of the whole concert. Anyways, he's got another one from this album called, what are we even playing here? Stay Young, Go Dancing, which I really like. So it's not going to be too good. If you want to just fast forward for 2 minutes here, go for it. But, my guitar skills are certainly rusty. I think I've touched the guitar about 2 times this year already. So we're just going to do our best. I played through this once this morning, and I got the lyrics here in front of me. But, hopefully it goes well. We'll just see how it goes. It's got some bar chords and stuff, and I'd probably do better on the piano. But, here it goes. It's called Stay Young, Go Dancing. It's from Codes and Keys, which I think it's about 2011 is when that album came out. It's something around there. I'll check after this. But here we go. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Life is sweet in the belly of the beast, in the belly of the beast, and with her song in your heart, it can never bring you down, it can never bring you down. Lost in a maze of 1,000 rainy days, of 1,000 rainy days, but when I heard her voice, oh, it led me to the end. Yes, it led me to the end. 'Cause when she sings, I hear a symphony, and I'm swallowed in sound as it echoes through me underneath. Oh, how I feel alive through winter's advancing. Oh, stay young, go dancing. As the music plays, feel our bodies sway. When we move as one, we stay young. Life is sweet in the belly of the beast, in the belly of the beast, and with her song in your heart, it can never bring you down, it can never bring you down. 'Cause when she sings, I hear a symphony, and I'm swallowed in sound as it echoes through me underneath. Oh, how I feel alive through winter's advancing. Oh, stay young, go dancing. Stay young, go dancing. Stay young, go dancing. So that's how that one goes. And Ben Gibbard was just awesome. He's a very just funny, real, down-to-earth guy. He told one funny joke kind of towards the beginning as he was talking in between songs. It was about how he's doing an interview with a local paper in Chicago to kind of lead up to this series of sets that he was playing this weekend. And the journalist asked him, why he was doing a tour right now, because Death Cab released new music in the fall, maybe like September, October. They released an EP, but this tour is just a solo tour by Ben Gibbard. It's not really attached to anything. So he, in his story, he says, yeah, I didn't really have a good answer for her, and all I really said was just because I like to play music, and the crowd kind of cheers and stuff. And he says, after I hung up the phone, I thought of a much better answer. And he says, I really want to prove to the world and set the record straight that I am about the third or fourth best guitar player, in Death Cab for Cutie. And it was really funny, especially considering they have one other guitarist in the band. So a little self-deprecating humor, but very good. Love Ben Gibbard. So check it out. Little cover there. Can't even come close to doing his stuff justice, but it's really, really fun to play. Really simple, but it's good stuff. So. Otherwise, what I really wanted to get at today was sort of some, what I've been eating, what I've been drinking in January, right? For a lot of people, it's a good time to sort of reset. There's a lot of different things that people will do. Let me get a sip of water here. We'll jump in. So, I think the classic one that a lot of people subscribe to is Dry January, right? So that's where we'll start. I've been doing it for, let's see. This is either my third or fourth year. I don't recall exactly when I started it. I don't know if I did it in grad school or not, which would mean this would be my fourth year. But yeah, it's so everyone's got different reasons for why they want to do Dry January, and then some people have different variations on it. Some people just do it during the weekdays, but drink on Friday and Saturday nights. I think if it's If you're really committing to do something like that and you're calling it Dry January, then you just got to go the whole way. I also know people, I've had friends and stuff who start off, they're doing Dry January, all that stuff, but they have a kind of like a event that they know is happening coming up, oftentimes just like a week or two into the month, and they say, well, I'm going to drink on this date just because it was already planned, and it's like I have to drink, and then that's just kind of the end of it, right? They never go back to Dry January after that, which is just kind of, I'm not even sure how I feel about that, but I don't know. The thing that with it for me with that sort of thing is like, yeah, I have stuff happening this month too, stuff that's been planned. For example, a Ben Gibbard concert on a Saturday night where it's like, yeah, everyone's drinking beer, mixed drinks, whatever. It's the thing to do. But I guess, I don't know, this is a little bit of a throwback for me, but I absolutely feel like I can have a good time and be social and experience the world around me in a fun, positive manner without having the alcohol thrown in. And I think if you, not to criticize, and I'm certainly not judging anyone, this is just my personal perspective and philosophy on it, and perhaps inspired by the fact that Ben Gibbard has been sober now for, 15 years, something like that. If you find yourself, and if I ever found myself feeling like, and this is about as philosophical as we'll ever get here on the Beantown podcast, but if you ever found yourself feeling like alcohol is an essential component of your happiness and your social life and your ability to kind of feel the emotion of joy and togetherness and comfort, it might be time to just hit reset and maybe do some reevaluation, reevaluation. That's a good one. Not because I think people who feel the way I just described are alcoholics. You're not. But it's just, for a variety of reasons, and I won't project these reasons onto anyone else. I'll just use myself as a personal example. But if you feel like you gotta have it, then that's just, you're going to be drinking a lot of alcohol. And again, not analyzing this through the lens of like all my friends are alcoholics. They're not. It's pretty easy to spot an alcoholic, but I don't think that kind of calling this or viewing this as a black and white situation where you're either not an alcoholic or you are an alcoholic, right? That kind of wipes away what 75% of the population, I think, is at, and that's this aspect of social drinking. So for me, it's not a situation where I feel like the alcohol has to be part of a social situation. So it's not really the hard reset there that I described, but I also just find myself, or I find alcohol to be a kind of just a essential part of my day-to-day operation. That doesn't mean I'm sneaking my flask in at work. That just means, you come home from work, say you had a long day. Okay, yeah, let's have a bourbon on the rocks or something. Or you go out with friends, trivia night or something, or you're going out on a Saturday night. You go to a Ben Gibbard concert at Thalia or Thalia Hall, either one. And it's just kind of an expected part of the experience. It's really good to get away from that. And for me, the biggest thing is just, again, reevaluating this concept of being social and finding your sense of community and feeling like you belong in a place, and trying to rediscover this idea without the kind of help or push of alcohol has been something that's been really nice. And it's really kind of a throwback, right? Everyone starts drinking at a different age. I had my first drink when I was 19, maybe, like 19 and a half, maybe something like that. So everything before that, right, you did lots of social stuff in high school and freshman year of college and go out and with your friends and stuff. For me, and I know I was somewhat late to the game with my first drink of alcohol, but, everyone experienced social things and gatherings and day-to-day life without it. We know how to do it. It's just a little bit of a kind of a throwback, and a look back to what made us happy before that. And that's kind of been a theme of my January in general, and in a couple of different ways. One of the other ways, I've started doing some exercises on Wednesdays. So I have my workout routine that I've been on since June, and I kind of shook it up a little bit. So Wednesdays, traditionally, I've been lifting and then hopping on the elliptical for like 15, 20 minutes. I've changed it up now to where I'm still lifting the first half of my workout, but then I'm doing exercises in the studio, which is kind of across the hallway from the gym. It just looks like a dance studio or something, but they got mats and stuff in there, so you can do exercises. In high school swimming, we would refer to them as dry land exercises, which you do on the side of the pool, as you would expect dry land, not in the water. Things like push-ups and crunches and flutter kicks and all that kind of stuff, right? It's a lot of core workouts, mainly core and kind of thigh stuff. So I've been doing that on Wednesdays, and right, we're literally, I mean, it's just push-ups, planks, and a couple of other exercises, and it's pretty short in general, right? I'm doing it on some of my lunch break, which I only have a certain amount of time for. But as I digress here and ramble like crazy, the kind of throwback to what worked in the past has been a theme of this, and kind of all ties into Dry January for me. So I can honestly say that it has not been a problem. And I don't know if it's just because I am so used to it at this point, the mental aspect of it, because this isn't my first rodeo. I've been doing it for a while. Or if it's probably a combination of all these things, but also January, and different people have different thoughts on this idea of how January sort of influences your personal life, your emotions, your happiness, that sort of thing. Because there are a couple different sides to this. One side, and this is how I typically feel, is that January is like the worst month out of the year because you get the cold, you get the snow aspect, but you don't have sort of the holiday magical aspect or the charm aspect. It's just everything's kind of gray, and all the celebration and the fun stuff of December is past, and now you're just in this long slog through winter. So for me, that means I end up spending a lot more time just kind of on the couch by myself, not making an effort to go out as much. That's traditionally the way I view it. Now, to be honest, it's actually been the opposite. This month, I've been really busy between social stuff, hanging out with friends, catching up with old friends that I haven't seen in a while. Been able to do that. Work has been pretty busy this month, but then also some side hustle stuff between focus groups and just a couple other things that I got going on, and just time spent on public transportation. It's actually been a really busy month for me. Like this past week, I had, I think, 4 nights, counting last night, where I didn't get back to my apartment till after 11, and then you have to eat dinner each of those nights, which I'm going to talk about diet in 1 second here. But the other aspect of it is people, and I know a lot of people who feel this way as well, and this isn't traditionally how I feel, but it's like there's nothing else to do in January. It's so cold. There isn't really anything going on per se, so we're just going to drink to make January pass. I understand that perspective, that viewpoint, but I personally never felt that way. So even though I've been really social, I've been going out, trivia nights, played trivia 2 or 3 times this month, and hung out with a lot of friends, after work and that sort of stuff. But I've never, like, even when you're in a bar setting, I don't feel the pressure to be like, oh man, I'm so close to the alcohol. Like maybe I'll just have one. Like, I think I have a somewhat temptation-like personality / addictive personality with some things, but it's typically more like food. I don't seem to have that problem with alcohol, and I even, it's not like, I know some people will do dry January and they feel like they gotta just empty the fridge, clear out all the alcohol, all the beer. Like, you can't have that in the house. I have a can of Old Style in my fridge. I've had half a bottle of whiskey on my countertop the whole month. When Walt was here earlier this month, I got beer for him, and he was drinking it while we were hanging out at home. It's just like, I don't know, I guess it's a blessing, and I don't know if it's something that's hardwired into me, or I'm just so used to it at this point because I've done dry January a couple of times now. But it really hasn't been a tough thing for me. It's January 26th. It's going to be easy to just fly through the rest of the month. I mean, tomorrow I got a flight at night to Atlanta, and I don't drink when I fly typically. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be on the road for work, which oftentimes I'll have beers when I'm out traveling for work, but I got a lot of driving to do in this particular trip because I'm going to be driving all over Alabama, and that's not really conducive to having drinks. And then Friday night, I got another flight to Austin. So I just mentioned I don't really drink when I fly. That'll be the case on Friday night. So, and then next thing you know, it's Saturday, February 1st. And I don't be surprised if I just kind of ride this dry January wave and let it keep going. I haven't thought about that too much, but I frankly, I don't miss the alcohol too much at all, which is, it's great. So what I'm going to do right now is read a couple ads. And then we're going to talk about my 18 to 6 intermittent fasting right now. I've done a lot of fasting in the past. In fact, I wrote a Beantown blog about that, which I'm going to highlight in 1 second here. But first, we'll read some ads. All right. Home Pride, Oregon. Are you tired of selling your house for less than a quarter of what it's worth, all because you couldn't find a reliable home inspector? We all know how frustrating that can be. Well, Oregon listeners, I got good news for you. Home Pride Inspection Services in Bend, Oregon is Central Oregon's hottest new home inspection provider with inspection services including things like heating and cooling, roofing, plumbing, and so much more. Home Pride, Oregon is both contractor certified and the "and" is in all caps, home inspection certified, so you know you're getting the good stuff. If you're tired of big real estate stranglehold, that was one of the best ones I've ever had, on the home inspection market, and you want a safe, certified home inspector that you can trust, you got to call Steve at 541-410-0316 or visit homeprideoregon.com. Again, you got 541-410-0316, or you can visit homeprideoregon.com. Home Pride Oregon inspection perfection. Excuse me. Shout out to the Samson Q2U series. It's had a busy morning here on the north side of Chicago. First, it logs about a 90-minute family chat, awfully impressive every Sunday morning. One of these days in 2020, year 3 of the podcast, we're going to do a full feature on family chat, because I think it's something that I talk about a decent amount with friends, not necessarily on the podcast, but just as kind of a cultural concept. I discuss it a solid amount, but we've never done a full feature about it on the Beantown podcast. So we're going to do that at some point this year. You got that to look forward to. But now it's on minute 30 of our award-winning podcast, Quinn Furnace Presents the Beantown podcast. So thank you to Samson Q2U series. From Genesis to Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Zechariah, Malachi, and Obadiah. Remember Jeff Bridges playing Obadiah Stane? What a name, Obadiah Stane in the original Iron Man. This is funny. Briefly mention this, and then we'll finish up the tagline. I was on Hinge the other day, swipe, and one of the girls mentioned that like her favorite thing is Marvel movies or something like that. I don't remember. And you know how these young people are. They're only thinking, MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, which started with Iron Man back in 2008, I think. Oh, by the way, I checked. Codes and Keys is 2011. So spot on with that one. And I'm pretty positive Iron Man is 2008. But, they don't know about any of the movies before that, any of the Marvel movies before that, because they're not part of the Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, whatever universe of Marvel, the new Spider-Man, all that stuff. So I said, yeah, that Howard the Duck movie from the 1980s is one of my favorites. And if you don't know the movie, it's really trippy, but there's a great scene where he's shredding the guitar solo. You got to go check it out. She hasn't responded yet, so probably doesn't even know who Howard the Duck is. What a shame. The young people these days, like lost sheep. But going back to where we were, remember when God speaks, he uses a Samson. A quick shout out to Jack Link's Beef Jerky, located up there in Wisconsin. This is a big throwback, but about 7-8 months ago, I attended my cousin Jake's wedding, and my Uncle Andy, who's been featured on the podcast before, and we'll get him back on this year for something, handed out a bunch of Jack Link's temporary tattoos, and I've just had them sitting on my desk in the apartment here for 6 or 7 months. And I don't know, I was just tooling around last weekend, I think on Sunday, so a week ago today. And I decided to just throw one on, just for fun. Sometimes I like to have fun. And I put it right on the inside of my wrist here, pretty much even with the veins and the arteries, that sort of thing. And it's hung on pretty well, considering I take 2 showers a day, one in the morning before work and then one after my workout in the middle of the day. That's a lot of sweat, a lot of scrubbing, and a lot of that sort of thing. It's still, I'd say it's about 25 to 30% still on, which is very impressive. Usually these fake tattoos, these temporary tattoos will not last very long. But that's that Jack Link's quality that, I can speak to. So again, Jack Links, we'd love to be a partner with you in the advertising process. Give us a call, or you can give us a email message at beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. Again, that's Beantown, BEANTOWN podcast @yahoo.com. And just that made me think of this real quick before we finish up our ads. If you listen to last week's episode, there's a lot I could say about it because I did listen to it. I think on Thursday night or something, or Monday night, I don't remember. I did listen to the lost episode for the first time ever. So I experienced all the cringe, all the pain that you all experienced. We're in this together. But I did recall that when I read out the email address, I was very clear, read every letter. That was probably your last chance you've ever had to actually understand what I'm trying to say when I read out our email address. But thanks for those of you who actually did tough it out and listen to that whole thing, because it's really bad. And now you know what you're missing. So if you ever, you heard us mention it and you were like, oh, he's probably just, he's being whatever the word is I'm looking for. Like, it's probably not that bad. Like, he's probably just embarrassed, whatever. And now you realize just how awful it is. Now we're all on the same page, okay? And we're all at peace with the situation. So no more complaining about, let's hear the lost episode, because it's, again, when you consider the kind of quality control I have with this podcast and just the lowest of low standards for my product, it's got to be real bad, real rough for me to just scrap an entire episode, because I don't even really want to do the podcast TBH. I just feel like I started now and I can't really stop. So to spend an entire extra 30 to 45 minutes re-recording a new episode should tell you just how low I think of the quality of that particular installment. But it's out now. There are no more secrets, right? I don't have any other lost material. There isn't any good deleted scenes or behind the scenes type of footage. What you see week in, week out is what you get from Beantown. So we're just clearing the air on that. But let's finish up our ads here, and then we're going to talk about intermittent fasting real quick, and then we'll finish up probably around 45 minutes or so. Cuts by Q. Bob and weave. We all know the hairstyle, and we all love it. But how many Chicago-based independent barbers can actually give it to you the way you deserve? Enter Cuts by Q. It's like Enter Sandman. It's just a little bit different. Ask Mariano Rivera. He knows all about it. Cuts by Q has been independently owned and operated since 1995 and is probably one of the better barbershop operations serving Chicago, Cook County, and the greater Chicagoland area. From beehives to bangs, faux hawks to flat tops, and everything in between, just call Cuts by Q at 815-298-7200, or you could email cutsbyq@yahoo.com. Again, that's Cuts, Q-U-T-Z, by Q at yahoo.com. Sing it with us if you're in the car, if you're in the hospital. I hope you're feeling better. Maybe maybe Ben Gibbard would want to sing this at one of his shows. Yeah, I'm going to shoot him an Instagram message, see if he, maybe he can turn it into a full-fledged tune. I don't know. Tune in next week to find out whether or not that happens. Oh, when you need a fresh do, something snappy and new, just call the experts at Cuts by Q. I think we're going to have to get some bongos. One, it's just a fun word to say, bongos. B-O-N-G-O-S. Almost I was going to say a parallelogram, but that's not right. A palindrome. But also, maybe like a fun little... or some sort of jazz improvisation with bongos on the Cuts by Q theme. You know what? A bunch of those old classical composers, some of their big hits were theme and variations, where you just take one simple little tune and then you turn it into a whole masterpiece that's 12 minutes long. I don't know. I think we got some things to think about here. I'm considering buying a piano. I've got the money for it. Paid off my Hawaii trip, all that good stuff, and got some funds left over from the side hustles between focus groups and consulting and some software testing I've been doing, which is interesting, something new every day. But I also, and I think I mentioned this in passing before on the podcast, looking not really looking, but something that's been on my radar for a while is ticket flipping, which is kind of just like glorified scalping. But essentially, you buy tickets for any concert you want, and you have to do research to figure out what you want to do, but for at kind of the lowest possible price, and then you turn around and you flip them for a higher price. That's it. It's that simple. I've never really done it. You read about people on the internet who are, really dedicated, organized, and they make, a couple grand a month doing it. It's all about, using your credit cards like pre-sale offers and getting in on kind of advanced ticket sales, that sort of thing. Which this is very exciting. And last thing I'll mention here before we jump into the diet that I'm on right now, the Fratellis announced a small North American tour. Hopefully it means they got an album. Well, they have an album that's dropping. We're just waiting for the first single, which is really exciting. This is their 6th album. Let's see. They got Costello Music, Here We Stand, We Need Medicine, Eyes Wide, Tongue Tied, In Your Own Sweet Time. That's 5, so this is going to be 6. And the title is out. It's really long. I don't remember what it is. But they're coming to Chicago. They're playing at Metro. I've actually seen them at Metro before, so this will be exciting. This will be my 4th or 5th time seeing them in concert. But they tickets went on sale Friday at 10 a.m. and I was all over that, right? I bought tickets at like 10:02. But you could buy 4 in an order, and I don't have 3 other people that I'm going with. I might, take somebody else or ask somebody else if they want to go. But I don't have friends who are big Fratellis fans. So worst case scenario, I buy these tickets for $30 a pop, turn around in April or something, May, as the concert gets closer, I can sell them on StubHub for 50 or something and make, easily make 50 or $60 total off of this. So again, right, it's small money, but, when you're working in higher ed and you're doing a bunch of side hustles, everything you do for the most part is going to be kind of small lump sums. But if you stick with it, if you're dedicated, it builds up. You invest that stuff, and next thing you know, you're in much better shape than a lot of people. So that's my kind of personal financial strategy. But last thing I want to get into on the podcast here today. We've already talked about Dry January quite a bit, and even got a little kind of more deep, serious, philosophical for you. This hasn't been a very comedic episode in any way, which hopefully you're okay. It's kind of a change up. And that's not something new for this show. We've been known to alternate between comedy and serious stuff here and there, all from the mind of yours truly, Quinn David Furness. But dieting is... that term can mean a million different things, right? I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I knew that, so ever since I moved to Chicago in June, my diet actually hasn't been that bad, but my biggest thing has been, I kind of do a good job across the board. I'm solid, like Monday through Thursday and sometimes Friday, but I just turn into a total weekend warrior where I kind of just... eat and drink whatever I want, basically Friday night through Saturday, or Friday night through all of Sunday, which I think I'd just been lying to myself for a while, telling myself what I was doing was good because I was doing such a good job, quote unquote, on the weekdays that I could kind of just do whatever I wanted on the weekends. But in your classic diet, you got one cheat day. I was basically taking 2.5 cheat days, so. Even though I was, since I moved back to Chicago, my workout plan has been pretty good. I've been, working out 5 or 6 days a week traditionally. I wasn't losing any weight really, which makes sense considering, just ate without any regard for health or anything on the weekends, and just drank a decent amount, Not actually that much, but just consistently a little bit here and there. It adds up. So my new plan for January has just sort of been an increased dedication to the healthy eating on the weekdays, and with a kind of a new strategy I'll tell you about in 1 second. But I also just know I got to be better on the weekends. there's a balance here, right? Because I'm never going to be the person, or I don't want to ever be the person that's just like 7 days a week, hardcore, strict diet, never have carbs on the weekends. Like, it's just, I think I could get into the habit of that. In fact, I feel kind of close to being there right now. But I get so much enjoyment from food that I just wouldn't want to deprive myself of those kind of simple pleasures. It's just scaling back the quantity a little bit and just trying to avoid the Friday, Saturday, Sunday night just awful meals, like eating an entire pizza or something. Just trying to avoid those big hits, utilizing the grocery store more for rotisserie chickens, but then also like a weekend dinner meal where I don't have anything cooked. I need something. So instead of, going to Domino's and grabbing a pizza, going to the grocery store, understanding, okay, I'm going to have to do a little bit of cooking probably, unless you get a rotisserie chicken, which I'll do sometimes, but doing something as simple as like ground turkey, some peas, and some pierogi, right? So it's still not that healthy because the pierogi is just straight carbs, but all it takes is boil some water for the peas, throw the ground beef on the stove, boil some more water for the pierogi, and that's it. So it's really not a ton of cooking. And frankly, it's not what I would call a healthy meal, but it's just so much better for you. So trying to aim for things like that on weekends. And what I've been doing weekdays, and try to do it a little bit on the weekends. It's never quite as strict because it's just tough to do on the weekends, and I guess I'm weak or whatever you want to call it, but 18-6 intermittent fasting. So I've experimented with a lot of different types of fasting in the past. In fact, this week on our Beantown blog, we uploaded a new post, which is a story that some people have probably known about, but I don't think anyone's ever been told the kind of gritty details of the time that I lost a bet in college and I fasted for 7 days, just water, that was it. If you haven't read it, go to beantownpodcast.com and click on the blog link, and you'll read it right there. It's the top post. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes to read, depending on your speed. But if you ever wanted to hear about Quinn David Furness not having food for 7 straight days, it's there, and every ounce of it is true. I went a couple months when I lived in Baltimore. This was definitely a fad that never really stuck, and I never really liked it, to be honest. And I don't remember why I started doing it. It just happened, where I would fast on Mondays. Fast Mondays is what they were known as. And I would just have water and coffee, and I never really liked that. It just didn't, something about it wasn't right for me. Which makes it even more impressive. There's something called a 5-2 fasting plan, which is where some people, the hardcore people, eat 5 days, pretty much whatever they want, and then they just straight up don't eat 2 days out of the week. Not back to back, but they're staggered throughout the week. And kind of the more traditional setup is you only have 500 or 600 calories on those days, which I think I could manage, but that's just, to me, that's really extreme. So what I've been on this month is 18-6 fasting, which is what it sounds like. You take 18 hours away from food and 6 hours window where you can have food. So my weekday setup this month has been nothing in the mornings, which isn't that different from my traditional breakfast of an apple as I'm walking to the train. So you just cut that out, drink a little bit more water. I don't miss it really. Have some coffee when I get into the office. And then from there, it's pretty much the same from what I was normally doing because I always work out sometime in the kind of 1 or 2 p.m. hour, come back, eat my lunch at my desk. I've changed up my lunch. This month has been carrots and hummus, and then I just sauteed chicken over the stovetop, cut up cubed chicken, and then I just throw it all into a Tupperware container, and then I just kind of work on that throughout the week. So it's like a 500-600 calorie lunch, something like that. That's what I've been doing for lunch around 2 or 3 p.m. and then around 6 or 7 p.m., sometimes as late as 8 p.m. And then this week was bad because I had so many nights, so I didn't get home till like 11. So I had to have dinner then. So I didn't do a great job of keeping the 18 to 6 going this week. It was closer to 16 to 8. But I try not to beat myself up if the calorie amounts are the same and I'm not splurging on really bad food. But, you eat that dinner meal, hopefully around 7 p.m., something like that, and then you're good to go until, 2 or 3 p.m. the next day. It hasn't been that bad for me if you've never tried it, but you're curious. I'd say the reason it works for me is, one, I drink a ton of water because you need it. If you don't drink as much water as you're supposed to, you're going to feel really hungry right away in the morning, and then it's going to be miserable to make it, the first, 8 hours of the day or something. It's going to be really hard. So you got to drink a lot of water. Coffee tends to help kind of calm my appetite. So if it ever was like noon or something and I wasn't going to work out for another hour or 2 hours and I was feeling that hunger come on, I might have a second cup of coffee because that'll do the trick for me. And then I get people who ask, I was talking to my boss about this yesterday at a work event, and she asked me, how do you run or how do you work out on an empty stomach? And the only way I could really think to answer that was, I can't imagine working out or running not on an empty stomach. I can't work out or run if I've had food, 3 to 4 hours minimum before my workout. I feel like absolute trash. I just feel all the contents of what I ate swirling and sloshing around, and it's not very fun. So I have to work out on an empty stomach. Even when I've run a couple marathons now, I think I had like a banana 2 hours before race time and then water, and that's it. That's all I can really manage. So it's really not too bad because then you finish your workout, you get a shower, and then you get to eat right there. It's perfect. I'm not even usually super hungry right after my workout because, and I think this happens with a lot of people, but my workout doesn't make, it's not like you finish your workout and you're like, I'm ravenous. It's like, okay, if there's something about that, I don't know if it has to do with your muscles constricting your stomach or something where it kind of calms your hunger for a little bit. Now, 2 hours after, if you don't eat, you're going to start feeling it. But right after, immediately after, for the first 30 to 45 minutes, I'm not actually hungry. But I get that lunch in there anyways. So that's what my 18 to 6 looks like. And again, it's not always perfect. On the weekends, it's a little bit more challenging. If you want to have breakfast or brunch and be social with it, if that's happening at 10 or 11, then I'm not the type of person who can eat dinner at 4 or 5 regardless. I'm almost exclusively more of a 7 or 8 p.m. eater, so oftentimes on the weekend it stretches out more to 16 to 8. But again, I think for me, if as long as you're being careful with the calories and hopefully not too many carbs, then it's not the end of the world, right? If you stretch it out an extra 2 hours or something, as long as you're able to get back on the 18 to 6 grind on Monday morning, which is what we're going to try to do this week. We're going to be in Alabama Tuesday. We'll fly out to Atlanta on Monday night. Then we're in Alabama Tuesday through Thursday, and then we're going to be in Austin with Brother Walt on Saturday. I'm there for like 36 hours, Friday night to very early Sunday morning, and then it's Super Bowl Sunday. So that's what's coming up. Busy week for me traveling. And if anyone has any survival tips for Alabama, let's hear them. I've been there a couple times in my life, but this will be my first time ever to both Tuskegee and Tuscaloosa. Going to the Tuskegee University and the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. God, give me strength. Okay, that's what I got for you. I went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but apologies there. Pretty serious podcast today, but hopefully some good insights into how my month of January has been going from an eating, dieting, and dry January perspective. And it's what I've spent a lot of time thinking about. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you know where to reach us. Tweet at us. We're at BeantownCast, and we would love to hear from you. Thanks to Ben Gibbard again, not for coming on the show, but for coming to Chicago And he's got another set tonight at Talia and Thalia Hall, both places at once, which is pretty impressive. Thank you for blessing us with your music. And if you don't know Ben Gibbard, his music, or just his story, go check him out, because he's just a really fantastic, genuine person. So that's what we got for you. We're going to load up some music here, courtesy of yours truly. And then, we'll come to you next week. And week after that, Oscars. Got to get Ryan Austin Ligon back on the podcast. Ryan Austin English, apologies. Okay, that's what we got for you, everyone. And have a safe week. Be nice to each other. And, take it easy. Bye.